Brickology!
Whether we like it or not, books play an important role in our lives. Books carry information, and although what we do with that information is completely up to us, from a very young age, we're taught that whatever is written in a book is pretty important and you'd better pay attention. Now, I've gone through school. I've had English, math, science books. I've read mystery, science fiction, fantasy, biographies. Yeah, I've read a ton of books. But there was one book in particular that, when I think about it, played perhaps the biggest role out of any book I've ever read. This book taught me the value of books. And it all started with a date that went horribly wrong. It happened while I was in college. I don't remember where I met her, but we apparently hit it off well enough to trade numbers and decide to meet for a first date. Here was the plan. At least here was my plan. We meet at the mall, walk around, talk, get to know each other, go to the arcade, play some games, which would be totally cool because I was really into Street Fighter 2 at that time. And she's like, hey, let's meet at the bookstore. I love books. And I'm like, when you say bookstore, do you mean arcade? Because there's a pretty righteous Street Fighter 2 machine right there. And she's like, no, let's meet at the bookstore. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, bookstore. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought you said. So we meet at the bookstore. We're walking around, looking at the different sections, the science fiction section, the mystery section, just talking about our likes and dislikes. We pass through the astrology section, and she grabs this book called Zodiac Signs and Dating. And she's like, hey, let's see if we're compatible or not. And I go, what? Turns out, this book tells you whether certain zodiac signs should date each other or not. Like, say, if you're a Pisces and you're wondering if you should date a Gemini, and the book says, no, don't do it. You'll be all, man, I am glad I read this book. I totally dodged that bullet. So she grabs this book, says, hey, let's see if we're compatible or not. She asks me for my sign. I tell her, and she starts flipping through the book, and I'm like, well, this is going well. She's wondering things about me. That's super cool. And she's flipping through the book and she stops and she goes, oh. And I go, yeah? And she says, this book says we're not compatible. And I'm like, well, that's okay. It's just a book. And she goes, yeah, that's too bad. Oh, well, it was nice meeting you. Bye. And she walks out of the door. And I'm standing there like, what the heck just happened? I think this is some kind of joke. So I'm standing there waiting for her to come back. And time passes and it dawns on me, dude, she's not coming back. And then it dawns on me, man, I'm standing in a mall, in a bookstore that's totally packed. Somebody or somebodies must have seen what happened and they're standing there watching me going, man, did you see that guy? He totally got shot down by that girl. Oh, that's so sad, man. I would not want to be in his shoes. So I'm standing there looking around, trying to look all casual and cool, trying to see if anybody's staring at me. And I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? So I just kind of, walked out like I'm totally natural. Nothing happened. I didn't just get burned by a girl. And, I never heard from her again, nor did I ever try to hear from her again. So big lesson learned here. Books have some serious shit written in them, and maybe I should pay attention. So thanks to Bookstore Girl, I go back, crack open my books, and study really hard, and I graduate from college. My parents are like, oh, we are so proud of you. And I'm like, yeah, all thanks to Bookstore Girl. And they go, who? And I'm like, exactly. I haven't thought about Bookstore Girl until now while we're recording this, and it makes me wonder, does she take all her dates to a bookstore just to look at this book to see if they're compatible or not so she can decide right then and there whether to continue or leave the date? Now, if you ask me, I think she just was really afraid to play me in Street Fighter 2 and she didn't want to get dusted. So she's like, man, I better get out of here before I totally embarrass myself. Yeah, that's what I think happened. What do you think?
Hey, did you see the show last night?
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I thought it was so good. I love the way that the camera panned down her body. And then Hulk says subscribe to channel now. Subscribe.